Welcome to Full Stack PHP Web Development course. A full stack web developer is a person who can develop both client and server technologies. He is aware of program or browser technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and PHP. HTML forms. An HTML form is used to collect user input. The user input is most often sent to a server for processing. For example, there are two form elements used in this example. First is the input, which is used to take input from end user, and second is the button, which is used to submit a form for processing. HTML forms elements. This chapter describes all the different HTML form elements. The HTML form elements can contain one or more of the following form elements: input, label, select, text area, button, field set, legend, data list, output. The input element. One of the most used form element is the input element. The input element can be displayed in several ways, depending on the type attribute. For example, we use this input tag, which has the type of text and ID attribute fname, and with the name attribute fname. All the different values of type attribute are covered in next chapter. So in this example, we will use input element. So first of all, I have to declare form element, its ending element, and inside that form we will use input element. Its type will be text, and we can set any ID. ID is the unique name for that form element, while the attribute name is being used for server technologies to process the form, like inside the PHP. You see, this has no ending. This is when we run, we will get a form element input with the type text. In this form element, we can type any text. The next element is the label element. The label element defines a label for several form elements. The label element is useful for screen reader users because the screen reader will read out loud the label when the user focus on the input element. The label element also help users who have difficulty clicking on very small regions, such as radio buttons or checkboxes, because when user clicks on the text within the label, the element, it toggles the radio button or checkbox. The for attribute of the label tag should be equal to the ID attribute of the input element to bind them together. The select element defines a drop-down list. Let's try to understand by example. The option element defines an option that can be selected. Now I will write the label element and will use the for attribute. This will be working with the radio button. You can check out its syntax. It has an ending tag also, and inside the for attribute we will use the ID of radio button. I am going to write a radio button. I am going to insert a radio button. Inside the input element, it has the type value radio, and we will set ID which is saved to the for attribute value of label. Now you will see it has a label. When I click on the label text, radio button will also be selected. And what we see if I change the ID for the label, and when I click on the label text, it is not selected. Now I have to select this radio button by clicking inside this circle. That is the advantage of label. I am going to provide a drop down list. So I will use the select tag, and we can set the name attribute. Then inside this selected element we will use this options tag. We can give some value inside the value attribute. Don't forget to follow the coding standard that I told you previously. And options, option ending tag, we can use multiple options to populate our drop down list with the different values, because this value need to be processed by the server. Then we will add this select element. After we run, we will see a drop down list. We can use the size attribute to specify the number of visible values. Use the multiple attribute to allow the user to select more than one value. Let us use this in our example. Size is equal to 4 and multiple attribute with no values. When we run it, you will see this drop down is converted into multiple select list, which we can select by clicking on the value on the text of the drop down select. And if we need to select multiple values, we will keep pressing control button, and you can select as many as value you need, and keep pressing control to deselect the select value. And to use this size, it will show the visible text value. How many visible value you want, you can include that value inside size attribute. So if I set 1, it will show only 1 from that drop down list. If I set to 4, it will show the 4 values text for that element. The text area element. The text area element defines a multiple line input field, a text area. The rows attribute specify the visible number of lines in a text area. The columns attribute specify the visible width of a text area. This is how the HTML code above will be displayed in a browser. Now check out this text area in example. Text area, columns, rows, attribute, its values, and end of the text area element. We can set default text inside this text area, which is optional. If I increase the columns and rows, you can see the difference. The button element. The button element defines a clickable button. Check out each example. The button with the type attribute value has button and on click attribute, which will run this JavaScript code. And this is the how HTML code will be displayed in the browser. When I click on this button, it will show up pop-up alert with the value of hello world.